Hello everyone. Thank you for joining me today. How are you? How are you? It's not too shabby of a September 1st here. It's a little cloudy. It's not near as humid, so it's a pretty good first day for September. But it's a busy day for me. So first of the month is always busy. So I hope you all are doing well. I'm so excited to be showing you how I work with polymer clay today and add it into some of my designs. It's really fun stuff to work with. I like it and quickwood, but I think I prefer the polymer clay just a little bit more than the quickwood. Although, you know, I do love adding those quickwood elements because it hardens up it like wood and you can work with it so easily. But the polymer clay is going to be fun today. I have a lot of stuff to show you, and I'm hoping that we can get through it smoothly so that I can paint something up for you at the very end. Not something great big, but something small that I can show you how to incorporate a few elements into something a little playful. Hi Debbie, thank you for joining. So happy you're here. Oh my goodness. So I can't wait to show you this stuff. I am going to put myself in the corner there. Now there's no line drawing or anything for this. I'm going to be mostly creating with the polymer clay and using some stencils. A couple of the stencils I'm going to show you are brand new on my website, lonnalamb.com. I just put them up there today. So, and I'll be showing you those. But I think we're going to have a good time with this. I think it's going to be very interesting stuff. Now, I am not a professional with polymer clay by any means. I just use it how I use it and do the things that I do that turn out well for me in my projects when I want to add polymer clay to them. So I'm not someone who uses it every day or all the time. I don't know special tips and tricks to it, although I do have a couple, so I will be showing you those. But yeah, it's fun stuff. Let me put myself up. Oop, that's the wrong one. I want me. There we go. Nope. Can't seem to get myself selected here. There I am. Put me up in the corner here. Okay. Can you see me? Okay. You can see me in my hands. Awesome. Okay. Whew. All right. I'm going to first show you a few of my designs that I have used polymer clay on. Now, I did show you one last week. This one, polymer clay. I did show you this one last week, my Chardonnay grapes. The video for this is on my YouTube channel if you want to see how I painted this. But I've got my butterflies. I've got one there, one over here. Those are polymer clay. And all these little leaves on here, these are also polymer clay. This one I've got turned up a little bit. This one too, and this one. So I've got some little turned edges on some of them. Super easy to do. I can't wait to show you how I do all that stuff. So let me show you a couple other things that I put polymer clay on. A couple of my other designs, generally it's a mixed media project. So this one has scrapbooking paper that I've painted on. I've also stenciled underneath this frame. But my butterflies, I love my butterflies, and I have two different sizes that I use. So I have my butterflies on here. So that's how I used them on this project. I just felt when I got it done that it just needed that extra little touch of something. Hi Deanna. Thanks for watching from Canada. I appreciate that. And I've got a couple more here. I don't know why I did giant projects here. My Santa, he is also a mixed media. You can find the video for this one on my YouTube channel. I don't think I have a video for the other one, the cherry blossom one. But on this one, I really mixed it up because I've got my paper here. Now, this was just paper that I printed off on my computer. It's got a Christmas song on it. You know, you better watch out. You better not cry. And so I adhered my paper here and stenciled in the background. And then I've got wood snowflakes, but on top of them, I have my polymer clay snowflakes that I cut out. And then I have my smaller snowflakes around. And I just think that gave it so much fun dimension on there. Turned out so cute. I love, love, love how those snowflakes came out. All right. And I've got this box here. Now, this box here started out just exactly like this one, identical to this box, okay? But I turned it into this box because I love these boxes. These are magnetic closure boxes that I get at Michael's. I don't know, I mean, a lot of things are so hard for stores to get in now. I don't know if they still have these or if they're just a seasonal thing now. I noticed that our Michael's stopped carrying baskets altogether. So you can't even get baskets there now, but I love these boxes, and they come in all different sizes, and I have many different sizes throughout my home. I use these in my closet, different size ones in my closet, to keep my closet nice and organized. So I want to tell you how I took this box and got it to this box right here. So I just adhered scrapbooking paper to it. This scrapbooking paper, as a matter of fact, that came from Hobby Lobby. One of my favorites. They still had it last time I was in there. So I think that was last week, maybe. They still had this paper. Just used my decoupage matte decoupage medium and stuck it on here. I did not have to do anything special to this box. I just cut my pieces out. I laid my box on, drew a line on each side. I did it on the back side of the paper and drew a line on each side. I cut that piece out. It went on the back. Did the same for every single side. Cut their own individual pieces and glued them on. Okay. Then I just took some black paint and kind of aged up the sides here. Made it look pretty worn. Gave it some character. Okay, then I stamped on it with this stamp, which will soon be available on my website. This is a super fun stamp for lots of different backgrounds. I liked it because it had like the postage type stuff on it. Love it, love it, love it. This is a clean posted script stamp in this. And then I also stenciled on this. Hi, Dee Dee. Hi, Deanna. Oh, I already said hi to you, Deanna, but hi again. I used this stencil. This is a new stencil on my website. This is my postage stencil. I created this yesterday or the day before when I was doing this box. I just did this box up yesterday. So then I stenciled all around on the background. I used black, a little bit of brown, and some red, just kind of mixed it up. But this little piece right here is polymer clay, and I'll show you how I cut it when we start working with the polymer clay. This is quick wood here. I just made a little ball and glued it on with E6000, but this is just hot glued on here. So, but this little postage stamp that I created is polymer clay. So you can do lots and lots of fun things with polymer clay. So let me move some of this stuff out of here that we don't need. And I want to make sure I don't put anything on top of any of my stuff that will break. I don't need that. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, let me grab my container over here. Oh my gosh. This is what I keep all my clay stuff in. So let's open it up and see what I've got here. So I've got these little cookie cutters. I bought these in the clearance section at Michael's one time. I like these because they are serrated or variegated on one edge, but the other edge is just a sharp edge. So if I want to cut a different size circle, I have two options for cutting that circle, and I like that. I have a dowel rod, which is what I use as a rolling pin. I also have a piece of plastic, and I'm not really sure where I got this plastic at. It's a hard plastic too. It probably came in something that I ordered. Something was wrapped around it maybe. But I use this as a rolling pin as well. You don't need any fancy tools when you're using polymer clay. I've got a container of cornstarch, and I'll show you how I use that later. These are some that I've already created, and I'll show them to you. I have a little container just of a couple leaves that I did. We'll be using some leaves in our project later. A glue stick. Now, it's not in here because I want to use the glue. It's in here because I want to use this end of it to cut circles and stuff. Even though I have a circle cutters there, I don't always, you know, grab those out if I need to cut something quick. Okay, so I've got parchment paper here, and this is what I use when I'm baking my polymer clay, and just some random tools in here that I've picked up here and there. A stabbing tool, toothpick. This is my blade that I cut my clay with. We'll be using that here soon. This is what I use to cut my stamp on that box, that stamp edge. This is just the cover off of a paintbrush. You know, you get those round brushes. You get round brushes, and, well, I won't put it on that end, but it's got the cover, the plastic cover on it. That's what this is right here. So you want to keep those, because after they get full of clay, if you can't get the clay out, you'll have to throw it away and grab another one. But that's handy to have. I have a paintbrush that I just use for polymer clay, and some other tools and things that I use as well. Okay. Now, you can also use like a fingertip dauber, that end of it, to cut your polymer clay. You can use this to draw a circle and cut on your polymer clay. I'm going to show you a lot of these tricks. Now, polymer clay comes in different brands, and it comes in different colors. So depending on what you want to do, you could get a color that you don't need to paint. But me personally, I like to use the transparent polymer clay or the white. Those are the only two that I use, and I would say 95 to 99% of the time it's going to be the transparent clay. And so these two are transparent. I went to Michael's yesterday, not yesterday, a couple days ago, to try and find some polymer clay. This is a Sculpey brand, but the one that I like to use is just a simple, it just says Sculpey on it. It's not the Primo one. The Primo is a little bit more expensive, and I just like the straight Sculpey, just standard translucent clay. These are all translucent. When I pulled my box out the other day, all of the ink was coming off of these packages, so I took a baby wipe and wiped it off. You can see there's still a little bit there. It's the weirdest thing I have ever experienced, ever. So, you know, and the clay, you don't have to worry about it drying out. You don't have to put it in a tightly sealed Ziploc bag. This is a baking clay. It's not one that air dries. So I've never had it dry in my box. So you can get lots of colors and stuff. But I've got some translucent, couple of, no, that one might, no, that's translucent. So we're going to be working with translucent clay today. You know, I've got this one that I started using the other day, so we'll probably work with it. So I'll just grab a couple of those out. And this is a different brand. I haven't ever tried this one, Craft Smart. I did get it at Hobby Lobby, or at Michael's as well. This is their beige one, which is kind of a neutral color. It's not so bad. Oh, and Fimo brand. I've not ever used Fimo brand, but I grabbed a couple of them as well when I was there the other day. But that's beige, and this is white. But translucent is my favorite color. I just really like how it is clear, and I can make it any color that I want. Okay. All right, so let me grab my little plate thing over here. Now this is just a piece of marble. You don't have to have this to do it, to work with clay. It's just a piece I got at a garage sale. So I just use it for my clay. I don't have to worry then about anything being on my tabletop, getting into my clay and contaminating my clay. So that's why I use this, and it's only used for my polymer clay. I don't use it for anything else. So, you know, you can use a piece of glass if you've got a piece of glass that you know, you have handy that you can store away and use only when you're working on your polymer clay. That would be great. Something that you can keep clean. It won't get contaminated from other stuff in your studio. So, before we begin, I take a little tiny bit, not a lot, just a little tiny bit of cornstarch and kind of tap it around here. That's going to keep it, if the clay is a little more sticky, which I've never ever had an issue of it being sticky. It's going to keep it from sticking to my tabletop. But the main reason that I use cornstarch is so that I can use it in my craft punches. That's how I get my butterflies and my snowflakes and things like that. I use my craft punches, and I'm going to show you how to do this. Do you bake on tile or glass? I do not. I bake. Here's a bunch of stuff I baked up today and a couple days ago. I bake in just a foil pan, just an old. Use it just for my polymer clay. I have this size because it's easy to store, but I do have a larger one if I'm doing a lot at one time. I can lay parchment paper in there if I want to, but I don't always do that. Most of the time I just lay it in the bottom of the pan. It doesn't have to bake very long. It bakes at 275. There's different clays bake for either 15, 20, or 30 minutes. So you just have to read the instructions, but generally the temperature is 275. And I roll mine out so thin that I only bake it for 15 minutes, and I take it out of the oven and it's cool. It's cool like in less than 5 minutes. So when I'm doing my butterflies, I fold up my parchment like this. So I'm going to cut some butterflies here in a minute, and I'm going to show you how I use this all folded up to create my butterflies. So I've got my clay here, and I'm just warming it up in my hands just a little bit. It doesn't take a whole lot. This is soft clay. It's very pliable. It's very fun to play with. I have a lot of fun with it. So I'm just going to roll it into a ball now that I've got it a little warmed up, and lay it here. And I'm going to take one of my rolling pins and start rolling it out just like you would your pie dough. So now if you're just going to be cutting something, which I'm going to show you how to cut some things, you don't have to have it super thin. If you're using it in a craft punch, you have to have it like as thin as paper. So I'm going to go ahead and roll this little bit out here as thin as I can get it. And it has to be paper thin. So just keep rolling it until it's as thin as you would like. I'm going to put just a little bit of cornstarch on here. Just sprinkle a little bit on there. Keep my little rolling pin thing from sticking to it. Super, super thin. And I'm sure you're going to think you've got it really thin, but your punch will tell you if it's thin or not, if it's thin enough. Has to be as thin as paper to go in a punch. So that seems pretty thin to me. Get some of that off of my hands. These things I cut out of a punch. Oh, that's two I glued together to make a double flower there. Star, I haven't painted that star yet. I still have a few snowflakes that I painted. Get them apart. So they're all glittery. Oh yeah. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. Get down here to see a little bit better. Scoot that up. I've got this pretty thin. Dee Dee, you've used Sculpey 3. I'm not sure what the difference is between the different polymer clays. And then I think I showed you most of these last week. These are all my butterflies. Sometimes when I'm working with clay, I will just do up a whole bunch of butterflies, and then some I will paint, go ahead and paint, and some of them I'll just leave unpainted and paint them to match my design, and then I just keep them in a little cup. This is just a little food cup that you get with a food order. All right, so we've got our Sculpey, our polymer clay, pretty thin. I think it's thin enough, but I don't know. We're gonna see. So my favorite punches are the Martha Stewart ones. They have quite a good opening so you can see to get your clay down in there. So and punches are hard to find. My punches I've had for a long time, so if you've got punches, give it a try. Be sure to have the cornstarch on your clay before you stick it in your punch. That keeps it from sticking to any of the metal that's in your punch. Okay. Here's my leaf one. It's a Recollections one. I think I got most all of these at Michael's. This is the one of the snowflakes ones that I use. I think I have another one that has smaller snowflakes. I didn't get that one out, but I do have another one that does smaller snowflakes. I've got this big flower punch. That's what I use to make these flowers right here. Okay. I just pulled out a few that I like to use. This one is a hand punch. Is this a Martha Stewart? I don't know. No, this is a Fiskars. So this one is the one I use to make my stars. I have another star punch. It's a little bit different. And then this one I tried the other day. It has a little tiny crab on it. Super, super, super little. I did cut a little crab out the other day. It was a little hard to do. See that little teeny tiny crab right there? He's little. He's a little guy. So, I mean, you can use smaller punches on it as well. So, I'm just going to do, actually I'm going to do a butterfly, a couple of butterflies first, because I want to show you how I get them to have their folded wings. Okay, so that feels pretty thin. I can feel my cornstarch on it. Let's see if it's thin enough to go down in here. Yes, Dee Dee, you can use baby powder too. I didn't have baby powder, so I had cornstarch, so I used that. So yes, you can definitely use that. Baby powder would work just fine. Okay, so I'm going to slide this down into the punch. Now, if it won't go, I know it's not thin enough. It went right in there, just super, super easy. I have plenty of room to move this around. If it gets caught at all, my clay is not thin enough. So I've got it nice and thin. I'm going to punch it, turn it over, and let that butterfly drop off. Now, I don't release this until I have it back up where I can hold the polymer clay. Then I release it and I move it to the next spot and do another butterfly. This is where you can have your little pick tool and pick it off of there if it doesn't want to come. I'm still holding this closed. Turn it back upright. Grab my clay, let it rest in my hand, release. Try not to do anything that's going to force the clay at all or put any heavy pressure on the clay. Now I have had clay get stuck in mine before. So that's my butterfly one. I'm going to move over to, let's do a snowflake one. Not all punches are the same thickness. I'm going to take my blade here. This is just a blade that you can buy in the crafting section by the Polymer Clay. I think you can get it in a little kit with some other tools. I put blue painter's tape on this side because I feel like both edges of this were really sharp. And then this is what I use to cut my clay. I'm going to cut all of this off and get rid of all that part that's punched so it won't be catching anywhere. Okay, so let's see if I've got it thin enough for this one, because not all punches are created equal. All right, so it started to not want to go in right there on that edge. It was a little thick, so I moved the clay over so that I could get it in there. I'm going to punch it. Beautiful snowflake. And I'm going to use my little pick tool now, because this is a very delicate little snowflake, and pull it off of there. I'm going to lift up and release and move it over. Now see, because there's so many areas that punch in that one, this wants to catch and not let me move it. Okay, so I don't want you to stress out if your clay gets stuck. If you've got the cornstarch on there, you can get it out. The one thing you do not want to do is leave your clay in it. So I'm going to pull it and let it tear, and it left a little bit in there. So I take my pick tool. If I can get to it from the side, I try to pull it out. If I can't get to it from the side, a lot of times I can just go straight in here and scoot it to the center, push up on that and pull it out. Okay, if it looks like it's going to cut it and leave some down in there, I won't push up on it. I'll just grab it with my pick tool. This one has a little scoop thing on the end of it, so I could also scoop it out and then just very gently pull it out. I've never had my clay get stuck in here. I guess after the first time that I ever used a punch for polymer clay and it got stuck in there, I learned very quickly how to get that clay out of my punch. So I always double check, which I did in my other one. I push it up, I take my paintbrush and make sure there's no little loose pieces of clay on there. You don't want any clay down in your stamp anywhere, or your punch. Okay. Okay, so oh, there it is. That one's got a bent arm. Let's straighten that out. Let me do a couple of leaves because I want to show you how I incorporate, how I bend the leaves up. Now this leaf punch, this is a thing to catch what you punch. I just take that off because I don't want that on there. It just interferes with everything. I have another leaf punch that makes different leaves, but I grabbed this one because it makes a little bit bigger leaves. So I'm going to release and see if I can move it around to a new area, and that feels a little thick. It won't take the clay there. So I'm going to come back to this side. That edge apparently didn't get rolled out as thin. And that's not wanting to go in there at all. So I'm going to cut this off right here. I can roll all that clay back together and reuse it. And I'm going to make this a little bit thinner. Little cornstarch. I want to make sure that it doesn't stick to my punch. Alright, slide it back in here. It's still not wanting to slide in there. So this one is going to require the clay to be a little bit more thinner. Alright, I got one in there. So we'll just go with a couple of leaves on this one. Now this one, because it didn't want to go in there very easily, it might pull on my clay when I go to take it out, and a piece might tear and stay in there. But it did slide out okay. So we're good there. Okay, then I just stick this thing back on just so I won't lose it. If I ever want to use this with paper, I want to make sure it's got its thing to catch it. Okay, just slide it back on there. Okay, so we've got our clay pieces here. I can just put this back in the bag. It's still good to use, but I am going to be showing you how to use some stencils and cut out some stuff too. I'm going to take these to my pan and put them in my pan because I want to show you how to cut with stencils and how to do some different cutting. So my butterflies, now I want my butterflies to be bent. So in order to do that, I'm going to put them in here on this fold and very gently push them down in there. And when they bake, they will stay that shape. They will have the bent wings. So that's how you get your bent wings on your butterfly. Super incredibly easy to do. Okay? Everything else that I want to stay flat, I'm going to do my other butterflies in here. This is really thin, so be careful when you're handling your clay after you've cut it so that you don't tear it or poke a hole in it or get something in it that you don't want. So I've got 3 butterflies in there. Okay, and then I'm just going to lay my snowflakes in here. I'm going to use my little tool, spatula tool, and pick them up. I don't want all of that cornstarch on there. And we'll just lay them in there. And then on my leaves, I want a turned edge on my leaf. So I am going to use my tool. You can use a toothpick, and I'm just going to bend that leaf edge over. Oops. I'm just going to bend it over right there, and I'm going to bake it that way, and then I'll have a bent leaf. Okay, you can do it on both edges, just one edge, whatever, you know, maybe just a tiny little curl there, and I bent the stem up, so you can do that. Okay, so those pieces right there are ready to bake. Okay, so let's see how we use a stencil to cut out some shapes. So some of the shapes that I cut out with my stencils are these ghosts, cat, there's another ghost. I cut this moon out, some bats. I've got a couple of bats in here. I cut some beehive honeycomb shapes out of my honeycomb stencil. And I think that's all that I cut out with my stencils. The rest of this, except for this one I used a stamp. I'm going to show you how to use a stamp. The rest of these, this one was cut out with a stamp. That's just a square I cut out. That's a circle. I used the end of my glue stick and just cut down into my clay and cut a circle. That's a stamp. There's another one of those that I cut out. And then these are the leaves that we did earlier. This is half of a moon, a little bit bigger than that one. Now this is a darker color because when I baked these the other day, I told my husband, I said, okay, I've got my clay in the oven, don't use the oven for anything. So I went and turned it off until I could get my pan out. About 10 minutes later, he went and turned it on to bake some brownies, didn't know these were in there, or forgot that they were in there, so it darkened them up. They're not hurt, they're perfectly fine to paint, but it darkened them up because they were heated at too high of a temperature. So they will turn that color. So yeah, it doesn't take very long for them to bake at all. So I'm going to show you how I did these, and then I'm going to show you how I used a stamp to get one of these. This is a stamp, not a stencil. I'll show you how I did those. So let me get my clay warmed back up here a little bit. Yes, I use a regular oven, but you can use, if you have a toaster oven, as long as you can set the temperature on it. It's at 275. You don't want it any higher than 275. You haven't missed too much, Anita, but you can always go back and watch the beginning of this. Okay, so I want to roll this back out. See if I can get it big enough to cut some stencils out. I might have to add some more clay to this. And when you're doing this for just cutting out stencils or stamps, well, probably with your stamps you would want to use a little bit of cornstarch, but just using stencils, you don't necessarily need a lot of cornstarch. The cornstarch is basically to help keep it from sticking to your surface if you're using glass or something like I'm using, and it's to help keep it from sticking to your punches mostly. All right, so that's probably thin enough for doing a stencil with. So this is the stencil that I use. This is a new one that's on my website. This is Cute Little Ghoul is the name of it. So I've got all these ghosts up here. I've got some leaves, some bats, this moon. That's the moon that I cut out. I've got a spider, different leaves, spider web, pumpkins, all this stuff. So let's cut out this crow. So I'm going to lay it on my clay. I'm going to grab some kind of sharp tool. Now this is the one that I keep in my box for my polymer clay, but you can use a very, very sharp, very fine tip blade. Or this, I just got this at Harbor Freight. It's a poking tool. You know, whatever you have on hand. Something that's sharp that you can follow the edge of the stencil. So I've got it laying on there, so I'm just going to go along the edge of the stencil with my tool, holding my stencil very securely. You will have some areas that are a little bit more delicate than others. Like the cat, when I cut it out, the tail was a little bit tricky. Let's see if I got that cut all the way through. I'm just going to remove my clay from around it. And any place that doesn't feel like it wants to come off, I'm just going to use my tool. Like right there, I can tell I didn't get my tool in there to cut that. So I've got my little crow here. Okay, and I'm just going to smooth out his edges very, very gently in case there's, you know, like a little fraying or something on there. Okay, he's ready to bake, so I can put him in the pan as well. So another tip that I want to give you when you are cutting your clay. If it is over 1/4 inch thick, you might want to bake them in different pans. Up to 1/4 inch thick has a certain time frame. Anything thicker, like if you're doing beads or something, they might take a little bit longer to bake all the way through because they are thicker than 1/4 inch. So just read the instructions on whatever clay you get, and you shouldn't have any problems. I've not had any problems. I wasn't going to cut the cat out, but I kind of want to show you the tail on it. It was a little bit tricky. So I want to stay right against the stencil edge. The tail is so thin. And just go all the way around. Now I've got a little bit of clay built up on my tool. I'm going to, what I did with my paper towel, I'm going to wipe it off on my paper towel so that I can have a clean edge. Oops. I lifted my stencil there. Keep your stencil snugly against your clay here, so it doesn't do what mine did just over there. It went underneath the stencil edge. Right up here, all the way around. Okay, I think I got it cut pretty good. Right through here is the thinnest area of this cat's tail. So when I did it the first time, that did not want to, it did not want to release. It doesn't want to release now either. So let's see how we do here. I did get it off cleanly, but it was a little bit tricky. Okay, so you can see how thin that part of the tail is. I think next time I cut it, I would just cut it a little bit thicker instead of leaving it that thin. This one, I did cut it just a little bit thicker through there. That's the area right there. That's the thinnest on the stencil. So just take your time and maybe leave that section uncut, and when you remove the stencil, then you can join the two lines and cut it just a little bit thicker. I think that will work just well for you. I'm not going to worry about saving that since I already have a cat. I am going to cut a pumpkin, and then we're going to move on to some other stuff here. Okay, pumpkin's pretty basic. I didn't cut the stem. I just want the pumpkin shape. So it's ready to go into the pan and be baked with everything else. They just need to lay flat. If you want them to have any kind of curve at all, that's when you're going to use the parchment paper and add that curve in there. Okay, so that's how we use a stencil, and that's this is the stencil I used to get the little honeycomb pieces that I showed you a while ago. I just laid it on there and cut 3 or 4 of these shapes because I thought it would be so much fun to do like a beehive and then glue a few of these on there for some dimension. I thought that would be lots and lots of fun. So I'm going to get some more clay out here because I want to show you how to use a stamp. So, all right, let me just get this all warmed up together. Yeah, this is Sculpey 3. Somebody mentioned Sculpey 3 a while ago. This is Sculpey 3 here. So, the Primo, I have used it too, but it feels a little stiffer. It takes me a little bit longer to soften it up, where this Sculpey 3 is so easy, warms up in my hand so quickly, and it's really, really easy to use. All right, I'm going to put just a little bit of cornstarch on here, and then I just take a baby wipe at the end when I'm done and just clean this off. Okay, flatten it out here and roll it out. And we're going to stamp this. You can use any kind of stamp if you've got a particular stamp shape that you like. And then cut out around it. Roll it out big enough for hopefully my stamp will fit on it. And like I said, anything that you don't use, just put back up for another day. This will not air dry, so I have tested that. I have left a ball of clay out sitting on my desk for months, almost a full year, and it never did dry out. So if it dries out for you, I will be surprised. So this is the stamp that I used to do this flower right here. Like I said, you can use any stamp that you have. I would do something that is a specific shape, like these leaves. This is the butterfly one that I did. Maybe this little flower, this whole cluster of flowers. You could do that and then cut around it. Wide angle just a little bit because that's having a hard time focusing. Or like some of these stamps. These would be perfect for this. Maybe I'll use one of these. Since I've already used that one before, let's give these a try and see how they work. So I haven't used one of these on the clay. Let's use a daisy one. I like these Stamp Pendus ones. They've got nice big grooves in them. So I'm going to take my brush. I can just grab some powder off my table or dip into it and put a little bit on my stamp to keep the clay from sticking to it. It really shouldn't stick to it if I've got cornstarch on my clay itself. So I'm going to put, now you could put this on a block so you could get more pressure. I'm going to put it on here, and then I'm just going to use my roller. And I have to be careful, I don't want the stamp to move. I want it to give a nice deep impression on here. So just push it down in there. Let's see if we've got it. Oh yeah, that cut it all the way through, which is good because then you don't have to trim it. So see, it cut it all the way through. So I'm going to try and get it off of the stamp without breaking it because my clay was very thin right there. Just be gentle, take your time, work it off. I really push that on there. You want all the impression from that stamp to be on here. Okay, so you've got a nice, beautiful, it came apart right there. I can very gently touch that and it will go back together. This clay is just so easy to work with, you guys. I'm telling you, it's very fun. So then I can take either my pokey tool or the end of this one and remove some of the excess clay in some places where I don't want it. Clean up a little bit. Give it a little bit smoother edges. It's super, super easy to work with. Push those two back together. Okay, so this is ready to be baked. You see how you've got all that beautiful impression on it. So when you paint it, you've got everything right there to just paint it or, you know, stain it or whatever you want to do. So that one is ready to bake. Put it in the baking pan. I'm going to clean the stuff off of my stamp. Make sure I don't have any clay stuck in it anywhere. I'm using an old brush so that I can really get into those fine grooves of my stamp here. Do I do as many crafts as you do? You know, I used to do a lot of crafts and I love doing them. My mom was such a very crafty person. Man, she could just make up some really great stuff. I don't do as much crafting as I used to, but I do love to do it. I'm kind of thinking maybe I'll get a little bit more into it again, but right now I'm just focusing mostly on my painting. So there are some really, oh, I want to show you how I did my stamp square. So let me lay this back out here. So I took a so much stuff over here, you guys. It's crazy. I got this ruler, and this ruler is, I don't know how big it is, 1.5 inches thick, maybe. Wide, I guess I should say. Well, a little over 1.5 inches. 5/8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, 1 5/8 inches wide, which I thought was a perfect size for this thing right here. So how I got my stamp is I laid this on here, and I took my cutting tool and I cut along this, and I cut along it here. Removed all the excess. Then I turned it this direction. So if you've got anything that will cut a square, oops, make sure I stay on the line there, and then just very easy, try not to pull on your clay because that will pull it where you don't want it. And then I've got my nice square here. So to get my edges, I took this. Now you might want to cut it down to small pieces so that it doesn't fill up with clay and you can push the excess clay out of it easier. I just went along the edge and removed some of the clay all around the entire thing, which made it look like a postage stamp. And then all I did here was paint it. I painted this with, what did I use? I used bleached sand. I want it to be a little antique-y, and then I kind of scumbled some bittersweet chocolate on it, and along the edges a little bit of black. Then I used my stencil and stenciled. I used red to make some lines on it, and then just really dirtied it up, you know, and made it look like a weird looking old stamp. So that was fun creating that. But that's how easy it is to create a stamp. But another let's see if I put one out here. Another stencil that I made that you could use is this postage stencil. So you could just go around this stencil and get your postage stamp that way as well. So that's another new stamp on my website for you. So that's how we do stencils. And I'm going to keep the Halloween one here because we're going to be using it when we get to painting here in a little bit. So I'm going to put this clay back in the package. I think we're done with it. I showed you how to use the stamps, use the stencils, use the punches. So many ways that you can cut your clay. So many different tools, anything that you have around your house. Be creative and really have fun with it. I want to show you how to paint up your polymer clay after you have it all cut up. So let me move some of my other stuff out of the way, because we don't need our tools anymore. Let's see if I can poke that clay out of there. Not with that one. Probably not with this one either. So if you do a lot, it will get stuck in there. So if you want to keep the same tool, just after every 3 or 4 punches, try and get the clay out and then keep going. So let's move all these tools out of the way. And I'll keep my painted ones over here. And we will start painting our, get this off of here, this is really heavy. We'll start painting up some of our pieces, because we're going to be doing a box, and I want to paint up some of this stuff to go on it. So I want to paint these ghosts, and I'm not sure if I'm going to use the cat, but I would like to paint it up. And this big moon here, we're just going to use our acrylic paints for these. And I am going to show you how I paint, I know I have another butterfly on here. How I paint my butterflies, because I do them a little bit different. It's the reason I like the translucent polymer clay is because I like that it stays clear. When I attach it to something, the background color will come through it a little bit. So we'll pull these leaves out. I might want to use them in it. So I think that's all I'm going to use on this project. So let me grab a plate because I didn't get my palette out, and my paper towel, and we're going to paint up. Oops. We're going to paint up these elements here. I just have so much stuff everywhere. Okay, so for my little ghosts, I'm going to paint them warm white. And you can use a brush to paint them. You can use a makeup sponge. My cat is going to be a gray color. Where's my black? So I'm just going to put some white out and make him gray, because I'm going to put some turquoise on him a little bit. So I'll put some of that out, as well as my bats. And then your leaves can be any colors that you want. So just pick some fall colors. I've got one that's not opened here. And we'll put some of those fall colors out. We're going to be adhering this stuff on to a box, and I'll show you that box in just a minute. It's a another one of those boxes that I got at Michael's, and whether they still have that stuff, I don't know. I'm going to use some makeup sponges to paint my stuff in. And I use makeup sponges till, I mean, they start out the size, but I use them till there's nothing left, because there's so much that you can do with a makeup sponge. So I'm going to take my white and just tap onto my ghosts. Now, one tip I didn't tell you was your pieces are going to be so small when you're painting them. So use some kind of tape runner, something that you can stick it to the paper that's not permanent. I use removable. You can also use double-sided tape or removable glue dots. So whatever you have, put it on there and stick it down, and then it won't be moving while you are painting it. Hopefully it won't be moving. So let me glue all this stuff down. Okay, so hopefully that stuff won't move now for me. And let me go back to pouncing on my ghosts. And then I can take a little bit of black onto my sponge and make a gray. The box I'm putting it on is black, so I don't want my cat to be super dark that we won't be able to see it. So I'm going to use a light gray and just tap that on there. I'm going to do the same for the bats. Just tap a little light gray on there. Okay, I'm going to do the moon in this kind of golden color that I put on here. Oh, let's see, I think it might be antique gold. Yep, antique gold, but I'm going to put a little white in with it to lighten it. And just tap it on the moon. We'll definitely be brightening up that moon. Okay, and now your leaves can be whatever colors that you want. So let's grab a little yellow, a little orange. I could put some brown out here as well, or some red. Some red would be pretty. Just small amounts of color. That's bittersweet chocolate or some country red. So if you guys have any questions about the clay, working with the clay, let me know. I'm going to try and get all these colors on this sponge. I'm not sure that's going to work super well. And then just tap my lead. Oh, that's my butterfly. Dang it. Didn't want my butterfly to be painted. Let me grab a brush and see if I can get that paint off, because I like to use the glamour dust on my butterflies, and I want to show you how that would look. Okay. Those leaves look really good. I want a little bit more yellow on there. Maybe I'll add some brighter yellow. This is golden yellow, or you could use a bright yellow. Anything that's kind of a bright yellow. Ooh, that's a lot of paint. Did not need that much paint at all, and flinging it everywhere. Goodness gracious. Okay. So let's take the sponge and see about a little yellow. Tap a little highlight on our leaves. Super easy to make these leaves. I want a little bit more red on here. You could make green ones, you know, whatever you want, but I'm doing fall, so I wanted a little bit more of fall colors. So I just want to darken a lot of these colors a little bit. That orange I want a little darker. So those leaves look pretty darn good, I think. Alright, I'm going to take this bright yellow. Let me get a different sponge here. I'm going to take this bright yellow and some white and put that on my moon. I want my moon to be brighter. Super easy. Tap a little bit of that off. I just tapped a little bit off onto a paper towel. Okay, then I'm going to pick up a little bit of white here, just on one edge of the sponge, and pick a side that you want to be lighter and add a little bit of lightness. Maybe pick up a little bit more yellow and go along the opposite side. And make that a little darker. You can play around with the moon, have lots of fun with it, add some oranges in there. Oh, that would be so fun. So fun. Let's put a little orange in there. Why not? If we don't like it, we can sponge right over it and create a different color on there. Very easy to paint. Ooh, that was red. Maybe we don't want an angry moon. Okay, I'm going to go back to my bats and my cat, and I got some yellow on my sponge, so I'm going to get that off. And go back to my white and my black and make a gray color. Okay, we'll put another coat on here. And then I want to get a little bit of this blue. You don't have to necessarily wait for this stuff to dry. I want some blue at the top. You could put it at the bottom, you know, wherever you want to add a little bit of color to it. But I don't want my cat to get too incredibly dark. Okay, let me cut my sponge here because I want to put another coat on my ghosts. So I'm just going to cut off the wet paint part and go back to my warm white. Is that what I'm using, warm white? Yeah, warm white. And tap that on here. And then we'll give them just a tiny little bit of some shadowy edge with some of this gray. You could go down to a little bit smaller piece of sponge here. Ooh, that's a lot of black on there. If you get it too dark, don't worry, because you can come back in with your warm white and cover it up. Super easy to paint. You can paint these in a traditional way as well, by adding, you know, by just painting them like, you know, they were part of the box. I'm going to get a little bit of black I want just a tiny bit along the edge down here. I don't want to make the whole thing dark, but I want it to appear black. You know what I mean? Know what I'm saying? Okay, a little bit more blue up there to brighten on the tops. 2 coats always works best. Okay, so I think all those elements are painted in pretty good. Add a little bit more of the warm white in here. Soften that down just a little bit. No hard edges. You can put this along this edge as well. You know, it's your ghost. You can be as creative with it, spooky with it as you would like to be. So I'm going to let those all kind of dry. I want to move to my butterfly. Now my butterfly, I love making them glittery, but you don't have to make them glittery. I just prefer them glittery. So all of these were just painted with glamour dust. Some of them are a little shinier than others, so I may have varnished some of them. That little one right there is so pretty. So I like mine to be sparkly. So I can use some metallics on it, or some glamour dust, or both. Doesn't have to be one or the other. So maybe I'll just do this a half and half butterfly, because I did do some of mine that way on my grapes one. So we'll put some metallic, and that did not look like it was shook up very well. So let me shake that up. They're both a very similar color. I could go with a, let's see, I have a purple metallic. Let me see. I have a purple extreme sheen, so maybe we'll try that. Get back up here. So we'll put a little purple out. So I've got, this is the purple extreme sheen, that's the glamour dust, and that is peacock teal dazzling metallics. So I'm going to use the purple down here on the lower part of my butterfly. And it might take a couple of coats to get it all nice and shiny and beautiful. And then I'm going to use the blue glamour dust on the top. I'll probably come back and do the whole thing with ice crystal glamour dust, because I just love that look, and that will take just a little bit for that to dry. So before you apply these to your surface, you want to go ahead and varnish them. So I'm going to use some satin varnish. So I'm going to grab another plate here. And I'm just going to varnish them right here where they're stuck on the paper. Grab my paintbrush. Just make sure you've got all your coats of paint that you want on them. And just apply a coat of or two of varnish on here. This will dry very quickly. I'm using satin, but you can use matte, you can use gloss, whatever appeals to your taste. So just cover the cat here. A little bit of varnish. 2 coats would probably be best to protect them well. But I'll just give them one quick coat because I want to move on to the box. Okay, I'll get some of these sponges out of here that I didn't use. Okay, I'm going to set these aside and let them get dry. Okay, I'll pull my stencil over here. Try and get some of this cornstarch off my table. We're going to be painting on a black box. Now, this box is also from Michael's. It looked similar to this one when I got it. It had something else on the outside. I painted it with black gesso, so because it also had like shiny parts on it. This has silvery looking stuff. I think this one also had some shiny stuff on it, but it might not have. See, it was this blue color. You can see it on the inside edge here. So I just painted the outside of it with some black gesso. Easy as that. So let's just create a fun little box here. Let's make a little Halloween box. These boxes are perfect for gift cards. Gift card will fit in there nicely, and or any kind of other special treat that you want to do. Some of that. All right, so we are going to stencil on here. I have my moon that I want to glue on. Yes, my moon, and I have a couple of ghosts and a cat. So we're going to do some pumpkins on here, I think, and some leaves. So I'm going to do my pumpkin in some orange. This one in mostly orange. Just stencil it on. Needs to be darker. I'm just using this makeup sponge, straight up and down pouncing when you're using a makeup sponge, and we'll come back in and add more details to that. We'll paint a stem on. I'm not going to worry about using the stem that's on the pattern. Grab my heat tool, if I can reach it, and dry that so I can put a second pumpkin on there. Put this bigger one beside it, and it can be in front or it can be behind. Let's add some yellow into my orange. And makeup sponges are not absorbent, so don't put a ton of paint in them. I'm close to the edge here, so I either need to tape that or turn my makeup sponge to make sure I don't get past that edge. This one's a little bit lighter. I'll put a little bit more yellow on it. Okay, we got a second pumpkin on there. Our pieces that we're going to be putting on here, put one off, we're going to put our moon up here with a couple of bats. I'm not sure everything that I've painted will fit on here. The cat obviously won't fit. And I do want to put a couple of ghosts, or at least one ghost. Pick a ghost, whichever one you like, and put on there. And then our leaves are going to go around our pumpkin. We're going to do a little bit more painting on our pumpkins. We can add them on here, our stem, and we can stencil the word boo in here. If that's too much for you, you can just do those elements, maybe bring the ghost down here, bring a bat over here, and keep it a little bit more playful. I still don't think that both ghosts will work on here. That might be just a little bit too much. Maybe just one bat and a moon. So you can play around with your elements. Okay, so let's finish out our pumpkins because all of these elements are ready to go on here. So we're just going to do some traditional floating. I'm going to grab some brown out so I can mix it with my orange. Bring my plate over here. So I'm going to take some orange and a tiny little bit of brown, mostly orange. And we'll just create some sections in here. Maybe just a tiny bit more brown on this one. You can put some fun little faces on these pumpkins. And this can just be a super, super fun, fast little project that you can do. So let's go over here on the other one. I'm going to add a little red in there and create some sections on this one. I'm using a pretty large brush here, so you might want to use something smaller. Thanks for being here, Dee Dee. And let's do this side and create a couple of sections on there. And then some highlights. I'm going to move these off of here. Some highlights with some yellow on this one. This should be a pretty fast pumpkin. And some yellow on this one. Let's add a little shading at the bottom with our orange and brown. That one needs to be a different color. A little bit at the bottom here. A little bit more brown in there. For this one, it needs to have a little bit darker bottom. And then we'll come up along this edge. Don't get too awfully detailed with this. This is just a fun little project that you don't really have to think too much about. Just add some little details on here. And make it fun. Put a little stem on here. Mix some brown with some white. And this stem's already started, so we'll just finish it out. I'm going to go ahead and connect it down there. And then this one gets a stem. And I do like to bring my stems onto my pumpkin. But again, that is a detail that you can leave off. Let me zoom you in so you can see a little bit better. And I'm not going to do tons of detail on here. I'm going to highlight on the stem. And add a little bit of just a little touch of a highlight on there, nothing big time. Now, before you, well, I zoomed you way in there, didn't I? Before you apply your stuff on here, you want to varnish your box. I also got some gold out that I thought would be super fun. I might put some of this on the pumpkins just to give them a little shine. But I want to put this gold on the edge of the book. This is Extreme Sheen 24 karat gold, just on these bump outs here. Oh, so super shiny. And just paint them all the way down. There's only 4 of them. And then if you want to set it on a shelf somewhere, it can just look like the edge of a book. You can do as much detail as you want on these. A thin gold line on each side of this big thicker line would look amazing. Okay, so we've got our pumpkins painted on here. I'm not going to paint anything else on here. I just want to quickly varnish. So I'm going to grab a damp sponge and some of my satin varnish that we used on the pieces. Oh, stuck my hand in my gold paint there. Try to stay off of that. And I'm just going to varnish this top edge here real quick. with some satin varnish. I'm just going to put one coat on there. I have to touch up my gold. I stuck my finger in it. All right, let me dry this. We're going to glue our elements on, our polymer clay elements. And you can glue them on with either E6000 or a hot glue gun. I prefer a hot glue gun unless it's something that's going to be handled a lot. In that case, I want to glue them on with E6000. Alright, so we're going to start with our moon. We'll just go on the back side of our moon. My glue gun has been heating up for a really long time. See if I can get some glue out of it. Okay, so I'm going to put my moon right there. Made a decision. It's there. It's on it. Not changing it. I'm going to put this one little bat on there. Stick it on right there. That looks like a good spot. Super fun. I think I'm going to come down and add a little bit of blue onto my pumpkins so I can carry that blue down a little bit. So let me add some glue to this ghost. Now I could also take my stencil and put some shadow ghosts or some ghosts that look farther away. I could put those in the background. That would be really fun. I keep sticking my hand in my gold over there. Let's add some of that blue onto our pumpkins before we glue our leaves on there. So I'm just going to pick a couple places on my pumpkin to add some blue. This is turquoise blue. Just carry the color down a little bit. Be creative, selective. So just a little kiss of the blue. I know we've already varnished this, but I can come back and add just a little bit of varnish in just those places. All right, let's put our leaves on. Here. I made a decision. It's there. I'm not changing it. Once it's on there, it's on there. So, all right. Always say where it's meant. Where you put it is where it's meant to be. I had a teacher in Florida by the name of, I'm gonna so forget her name. Oh my gosh, she learned with a great artist. Terrible about remembering names. Anyway, she's the one that told me that when I took one of her classes one time. That the master that she was learning from told her, and so I've never forgotten it, and so I always mention that. Oh, look at that. That looks super, super, super cute. I could add another bat on there. Maybe I will. Maybe. Alright, let's take a peek at something that I might do next week. If it doesn't appeal to you guys, then I will come up with something else. But wasn't that fun? What do you guys think? Let me hear your thoughts on this. Do I always use a sponge to put my varnish on? Yes, I do. I absolutely always use a sponge to apply my varnish. The reason is because with a sponge, I get nice, thin, even coats. With a brush, I can't. And with a brush, it starts drying before I can get it all smoothed out. With a damp sponge, it just goes on beautifully and easily. It dries quickly, so I can add as many layers as I want to onto my project. So, there is that fun little Halloween box right there that you can do up for a gift for your grandkids. Put a special little Halloween treat in there. So fun. All right, so let me know what you thought of the polymer clay stuff. I really, really, really enjoy painting with the polymer, or working with the polymer clay. It's so much fun. So much fun. I'm going to bring over an idea of something that we might do next week. The problem I'm having with this is that finding the supplies that I use, because I made these up years ago. But they're a fun little Halloween project. So let me know if you want to do something like this. The pot is painted. We've got ribbon here, and then the cone is painted. If you have a cone, that would be great. You could paint along with me. I can give you the line drawing for my little house. I painted several different styles of these. My daughter-in-law has most of them. She's going to look and see if she can find any of them to put as examples to use. But we'll paint the clay pot and the cone. If I cannot find any cones, which right now I'm not having any luck whatsoever, I'm going to paint this ball and paint it to look like a pumpkin. So, you know, that's my backup plan right now. This is just an ornament that I got at Hobby Lobby, so I know these are readily available. You can use a paper mache pot. This is a 4-inch pot from Hobby Lobby. Or this one, I use this kind of pot, which I really like these a lot. These are a little over 2.5 inches, $4.99 for 6, I believe. Yep, 6. Can't use a coupon at Hobby Lobby anymore. These were not on sale, but you know, I figure $4.99 is pretty good. That's less than $1 each. So I'm going to be using one of these. If you want to do this project, if you want something that's more just traditionally painted, let me know, but I thought this would be fun. Something like this would be fun to do. We're still doing painting. I'm still showing you how to do some floating and some things like that. But we're making something fun for a Halloween decoration. So let me know what you think of doing something like this next week, and I will get the supply list of what you will need. It's a super incredibly easy project, but so much fun. I made so many of these up. I made some that look like Christmas trees. I made some that look like Santa. I had a lot of fun with creating these a few years ago, but I think the Halloween one, since you know, we're almost to that season, I think it would be super, super fun to do. So I really would like your feedback on what you think about doing that. If I can't find the cones, I will definitely be doing a ball and making it a pumpkin, and we can have so much fun creating really cute faces on our pumpkins. But that was the polymer clay lesson today. I hope you enjoyed it. I might add a little bit of gold onto my pumpkins. I will have to re-varnish them because I already varnished the project, so I want to make sure that the extra paint that I'm putting on top gets a little varnish on it. So let's just sparkle up our pumpkins a little bit. Maybe the side that's getting a little bit more of the moon glow, we can put a little bit on our moon. Just add a little bit of glitz and glam on there. Ooh, let's put some on our leaves. That would be just beautiful on there. Ooh, love that on the leaves. So pretty. So pretty. Okay. All right, that is it for today. Please give me your feedback on the project for next week. I just thought we could do a couple of little fun things before we get back into traditional painting, but if you want me to go back into the traditional painting, I definitely will. So I think that's going to be it for me today, unless there's any questions. I'm not seeing any questions pop up, so I hope that you all have a wonderful and blessed remainder of your week. And, oh, Rosanna, I'm so sorry you're late. Well, you can watch it on my channel. It'll be there forever. And let me know your thoughts when you get to the end of it. So, I'm anxious to hear what you guys think about the project for next week, or doing something more traditional. So I think it'll be fun to kind of mix things up every now and then, not be stuck doing the same thing all the time. So that's how we get our creative juices flowing and see which way our creativity leans. It doesn't always lean a certain way, you know, traditionally painting, or, you know, throwing in some elements like this, the polymer clay, you know, and things like that. So let me know your thoughts, everybody. Thank you all so much for staying with me and watching my demonstration. Hopefully some of you are going to grab some polymer clay and work up some really fun designs. And I will let you know what we're going to do for next week, and I will see you then. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a wonderful and blessed remainder of your day. I appreciate you all. Give me a thumbs up, like, and share. Bye-bye, everybody.